I'd like to welcome you to our Sunday evening service here at Grace Baptist Church. Glad that you're with us tonight. And if you're joining us online, we're glad to have you as well. I'd ask you to take your hymn books, please. Turn back to 155. 155 at Calvary. Let's stand together. We'll do the first, second, and last verse of this one this evening. 1, 2, and 4 together on the first. Years I spent page 63, glory to his name. We'll sing all 4 verses of this one this evening. That you're with us this evening. Just a few announcements before we get to those. Is there anybody who needs a bulletin? If you need a bulletin, if you'd raise your hand. One of those fine-looking men in the back will get it to you. And do we have anyone visiting with us? This is your first time at Grace Baptist Church this evening. If you would, raise your hand. Okay, so we've got a few announcements. Just a reminder, please be in prayer for Pastor Samples, Caleb and Joshua as they are traveling to Alaska. He'll be up there through next Sunday at least, but he is going to be in the outback of Alaska, so please pray for him. No conveniences whatsoever in this camp that he's preaching in, and mosquitoes the size of Harrier jets that I'm told. So he is taking bug repellent. Also, remember Brother Stevenson, Candace, and Elijah. They are traveling to Kansas, and they'll be speaking at a camp this week out there. So please keep our pastoral staff in your prayers. Wednesday night, we have a regular service. Brother Dan Moore will be preaching, so we're looking forward to that. And don't forget, looking ahead, we have Abby Seaman's bridal shower coming up next Sunday night after the service. There is no Great Commission night tomorrow night, and also no Bearing Precious Seed. They're going to get resupplied, and then they'll be starting that again. So our next Great Commission is Monday, June the 26th. And then we have a wonderful Wednesday coming up June the 28th. And then July 1st, we have our men's prayer and breakfast. So keep that in mind. You see, there's an announcement in the bulletin about the Lighthouse Keepers activity to Tecumseh. The outdoor drama, that's on Friday, July 21st, and there's sign up and information at the welcome desk. And then we have the ladies' Bible study coming up the week of July the 3rd. It's actually Thursday, July the 6th, and that's a 9:30 or a 6:30 start on that. We don't have any visitors, but we're going to go ahead and do our fellowship chorus. That's on 750. If you would stand together, we'll sing Isn't He Wonderful, and then give you an opportunity to shake hands with those that are here tonight. And I'll have the fellows make their way forward, please, for our evening offering. And Brother Alan Bollinger, would you lead us in a word of prayer, please, this evening?
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight. We just thank you for the opportunity to be here to hear your word. We just pray that you be with each one of us. Our hearts will be open. Pray you be with this service, be with this hour. Multiply it, use your service. And you go with the Lord.
Amen. Take your hymn books one more time. Let's stand together. Turn back to 170. 170, Saved by the Blood. We'll stand together and we'll sing the first and last verse of this one this evening. 170.
Saved All right, if you would take your Bibles this evening and turn to Joshua chapter 2. Joshua chapter 2. Well, I'll just tell you up front, I have 12 points tonight. I told that to Brother Koffenbarger and he about choked. So he told me not to tell you, but you were going to find out at some point anyways. So, but I will go through them fast, I promise. All right, Joshua chapter 2. And what we're going to do is read in a minute here all of Joshua chapter 2. And then we'll move to Joshua chapter 6. Just a little background to where we are in Joshua chapter 2. At this point in the Bible, God had brought the people out of Israel, out of their bondage in the land, from the land of Egypt, through the Red Sea. He promised to bring them into the land of Canaan, the land that he had given Abraham many, many years ago. So this promised land that they were looking forward to. God met with the Israelites at Mount Sinai. He gave them his law. He declared them to be his chosen people. And then he ordered them to march to the land of promise, the land of Canaan, and to take that land as their own. And of course, we all know the story that once they got there, the 10 bad spies and the 2 good spies, right? And I won't rehash that story, but because of really the nation's lack of faith, besides Joshua and Caleb, because of the nation's lack of faith, they lost their opportunity to go into the land of promise, and they were made to wander in the wilderness all over again. And that's really where this story begins here today. Tonight we're going to be looking at Rahab and the story of Rahab, and not necessarily as much the story, but specifically how the story of Rahab is a picture of salvation. So that's where the story of Rahab begins, really, is right here. The old generation of people have died off of the children of Israel, and their children are now ready to enter into the promised land. And we find that Joshua, the very same Joshua that was a spy probably about 38 years before this, that same Joshua sent 2 men to spy out the first major city of this promised land, which of course is Jericho, lying right on the other side of the Jordan River. So that brings us to our passage here for tonight, Joshua chapter 2. So we'll read this whole entire chapter and then move to Joshua chapter 6. So Joshua 2, verse 1. And Joshua the son of Nun sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, "Go view the land, even Jericho." And they went and came into an harlot's house named Rahab and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, "Behold, there came men in hither tonight of the children of Israel to search out the country." And the king of Jericho sent unto Rahab, saying, "Bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into thine house, for they be come to search out all the country." And the woman took the 2 men and hid them, and said thus, "There came men unto me, but I wist not whence they were." That is a tongue twister, but I wist not whence they were. And it came to pass about the time of shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that the men went out. Whither the men went, I wot not. Pursue after them quickly, for ye shall overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof of the house, and hid them with the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. And the men pursued after them the way to Jordan unto the fords. And as soon as they pursued after them, they were gone out, they shut the gate. And before they were laid down, she came up unto them upon the roof. And she said unto the men, "I know that the Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when ye came out of Egypt, and what ye did unto the 2 kings of the Amorites that were on the other side of Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom ye utterly destroyed. And as soon as we had heard these things, our hearts did melt. Neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth beneath. Now therefore, I pray you, swear unto me by the Lord, since I have showed you kindness, that you will also show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a true token. and that ye will save alive my father and my mother and my brethren and my sisters and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. And the men answered her, Our life for yours, if ye utter not this our business. And it shall be, when the Lord hath given us the land, that we will deal kindly and truly with thee. Then she let them down by a cord through the window, for her house was upon the town wall, and she dwelt upon the wall. And she said unto them, Get you to the mountain, lest the pursuers meet you, and hide yourselves there 3 days, until the pursuers be returned, and afterward may ye go your way. And the men said unto her, We will be blameless of this thine oath, which thou hast made us swear. Behold, when we come into the land, thou shalt bind this line of scarlet thread in the window, which thou didst let us down by. And thou shalt bring thy father and thy mother and thy brethren and all thy father's household home unto thee. And it shall be that whosoever shall go out of the doors of the house into the street, out of thy house into the street, his blood shall be upon his head, and we will be guiltless. And whosoever shall be with thee in the house, his blood shall be on our head, if any hand be upon him. And if thou utter this our business, then we will be quit of thine oath, which thou hast made us to swear. And she said, According unto your words, so be it. And she sent them away, and they departed, and she bound the scarlet line in the window. And they went and came unto the mountain, and abode there 3 days until the pursuers were returned. And the pursuers sought them throughout all the way, but found them not. So the 2 men returned and descended from the mountain, and passed over, and came to Joshua the son of Nun, and told him all things that befell them. And they said unto Joshua, Truly the Lord hath delivered into our hands all the land, for even all the inhabitants of the country do faint because of us. You turn over now to Joshua chapter 6. So a little bit of time has passed, and these spies escaped. Obviously, that's that story. I'm not going to elaborate too much on that. We just read that. And now, in the middle of Joshua chapter 6, I won't take time to read. We'll start in verse 15. But now the nation of Israel have surrounded Jericho. Not surrounded Jericho, but they've been marching around Jericho for a few days now, 6 days. And in verse 15, it picks up what happens on the 7th day. And I think we all know what happens at the Battle of Jericho. That's why I'm trying to get through this here. But in verse 15 of Joshua chapter 6, it says this, And it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times. And it came to pass at the 7th time, when the priests blew with the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, Shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. Verse 17, And the city shall be accursed, even it and all that are therein, to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are with her in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. And ye in any wise keep yourselves from the accursed thing, lest ye make yourselves accursed, when ye take of the accursed thing, and make the camp of Israel a curse, and trouble it. But all the silver and gold and vessels of brass and iron are consecrated unto the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted when the priests blew at the trumpets, and it came to pass when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, and ox and sheep and ass, with the edge of the sword. But Joshua had said unto the 2 men that had spied out the country, Go into the harlot's house, and bring out thence the woman, and all that she hath, as ye swear unto her. And the young men that were spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and her mother and her brethren and all that she had. And they brought out all her kindred, and they left them without the camp of Israel. And they burnt the city with fire and all that was therein. Only the silver and the gold and the vessels of brass and the iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. Verse 25, And Joshua saved Rahab the harlot alive, and her father's household, and all that she had, and she dwelleth in Israel even unto this day, because she hid the messengers which Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. I know that was a lot of reading for tonight, but I think it will be good for us as we look tonight. The title of my sermon is The Story of Rahab, a Picture of Salvation. The story of Rahab, a picture of salvation. I think all of us have heard of this story of Rahab and know that it's a picture of salvation, but hopefully this will be an encouragement and a blessing to us tonight. Let's pray and we'll get into the sermon. Lord, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for this wonderful story in your word and about Rahab, Lord, really a wicked woman that was saved by putting faith in you. And we thank you for the different aspects of salvation that are shown here. And I just pray you give me wisdom as I preach. And thank you again for your word and the power that it has. In your name I pray. Amen. Let's jump right in here. Number one, we see the grace of salvation. The grace of salvation. Here in Rahab's life, we see grace. 3 times in Joshua chapter 6, Rahab is spoken of as a harlot. Not a good thing to be spoken of as a harlot. And 3 times she was spoken of that way. Obviously, that's not even including chapter 2 that we read. So she was really guilty of some of the vile sins that were characteristic of this pagan country, this pagan land, this pagan city. And really, one of the reasons for which judgment came upon Jericho, she was guilty of these sins. But yet, in spite of her sin and what people might look at and say, that is totally wicked, that is awful that she could be that way, despite that, she was saved. This illustrates the grace of God in salvation. All of us who are saved can thank the grace of God for our salvation. None of us deserve it. We don't deserve anything. Any aspect of our salvation we don't deserve. Just like Rahab didn't deserve necessarily to be saved from the city of Jericho, every single other person in the city besides her and her household were killed, perished. Her and her household were the only ones that were saved. Did she deserve that? No, but we see the grace of salvation. We have all committed sin worthy of divine judgment, just as Rahab committed sin. And because of that sin, God announced divine judgment for the cities of Canaan. And how thankful we can be, and we should be, that salvation is of grace. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8, for by grace are ye saved. What a wonderful passage there. Apart from grace, Rahab would not have been saved. Apart from grace, not one of us would be saved either. So the grace of salvation. Number 2, the faith of salvation. The faith of salvation. Scripture says that faith was an important factor in Rahab being saved from the destruction of Jericho. Hebrews chapter 11, I won't turn there, but in Hebrews chapter 11, Rahab is mentioned. And it says, by faith the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not when she had received the spies with peace. So the Apostle Paul said that in Romans chapter 5, verse 1, that we are justified by faith. So Rahab's faith really was in believing what Jehovah, God, did in redeeming Israel from Egypt in Joshua 2, verse 9. That's what her faith was in. Of course, our faith is in believing what Jesus Christ did to redeem sinners from the eternal damnation of sin. We have to have faith in that, and even the littlest amount of faith in that. So number 2, we see the faith of salvation. Number 3, the protector of salvation. The protector of salvation. We just read this in Joshua chapter 2. Let's turn back there and read verse 18 again. Joshua 2, verse 18. So the spies here are saying this to Rahab. Behold, when we come into the land, thou shalt bind this line of scarlet thread in the window, which thou didst let us down by, and thou shalt bring thy father and thy mother and thy brethren and all thy father's household home unto thee. So the scarlet cord is often fittingly seen, even when we're telling the story to children, we say the scarlet cord is seen as a picture of the blood of Christ. So coupling that truth with the work of the blood of the Lamb, which the children of Israel would have known about, the blood of the Lamb, a picture of Christ in Egypt on the houses of the Israelites, that gives us a picture in Rahab's deliverance of the protecting power of the blood of Christ for the redeemed. It was the blood of the Lamb on the houses that protected the Israelites in Egypt from the death of the firstborn. Exodus 12:13, and the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you. when I smite the land of Egypt. So it was this scarlet cord in Rahab's window, this scarlet cord that was a picture of the blood of Christ that when hung on Rahab's house, protected her from the destruction that was literally all around her, protected her. All of this pictures the protection of the soul protection that we have in the blood of Christ. It cleanses us from all sin. We find that in 1 John, that the blood of Christ cleanses us from all sin. And likewise, it protects us from divine judgment. So just as Rahab was protected from divine judgment by that scarlet cord, which represents the blood of Christ, so we are protected from divine judgment, and it cleanses us from all sin, the blood of Christ. Amazing thing. So the protection of salvation. Number 4, the evidence of salvation. The evidence of salvation. Twice in Joshua chapter 6, Joshua mentions that Rahab hid the spies. Twice it mentions that she hid the spies. And this seems like a trivial thing. Okay, Rahab hid the spies, not a big deal. But really what this was an evidence of her faith in Jehovah, or in other words, the evidence of her salvation. The book of James speaks of Rahab's work of hiding the spies as evidence of saving faith. James chapter 2, we won't turn there, verses 25 and 26. Likewise also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works when she had received the messengers and had sent them out another way? And it goes on to say, so faith without works is dead. So Rahab is mentioned in Hebrews and now in James. So James here is not teaching or advocating for a works-based salvation or salvation by works. James is simply saying that works show our faith. There should be an evidence for our faith in our lives. The evidence to men of our faith is our works. That's how people know that we have faith. It's by our works. So Rahab believed in Jehovah, and that was evidenced in the fact that she hid the spies. Evidence for faith is so important. Just like we might use the illustration, say, of marriage, evidence of love is very, very important. You might say it's just as important as the love itself. I could talk all day about how much I love my wife. I could tell her all day how much I love her. But until I actually do something, until I show her that I love her, that it really means nothing when I just say that I love her until I show that. She needs to see and see these works, because when I'm just saying the words, that doesn't mean anything. And so likewise, faith, if we just say that we have faith, there should be works that accompany that. So the evidence of salvation is seen here when Rahab hid the spies. That was evidence of her faith. God can see our hearts. God knows when we have turned to him. But what do men see? Men see our works, and they see what we do, how we live our lives. So they see our works to validate our faith. So Rahab had works to show that she had faith. And what we must ask ourselves is, do I? Do I? Many people say that they're saved, but don't live like it. And unlike Rahab, they don't have any works to evidence that they are really saved. So what we see here in Rahab's life is an evidence of her faith. So the evidence of salvation. Number 5, the miracle of salvation. The miracle of salvation. Rahab's escape from divine judgment was a miracle. Her house was built on the wall of Jericho, literally on the wall of Jericho. We find that in Joshua 2:15. So her house was built spared. So the miracle did occur. Destruction is a miracle of God. It takes the miracle working power of God to redeem us and nothing less. So it's good for us to think about these different aspects of salvation on our way to heaven. So we need to thank the Lord for that. Number 6, the captain of salvation. The captain of salvation. Joshua was the leader of the Israelites.